we're starting.
We are recording.
I see that. All right, so this presentation is called 2.5 tower clocks, and I'll explain why I said that. I'm going to show you kind of some of the interesting features of 2 tower clocks that I've worked on in the past couple of years. And the half a clock is actually the Laramie Courthouse up in Cheyenne, which it's got one dial on it, and it's not really a tower, but it's got a really cool tower clock movement in it. So the building up on the left, that's the Styro building. If you're familiar, that's on 2500 Broadway. That's been kind of, I'm going to say, the second most iconic tower clock next to the DNF tower. Yeah. And then there's the Cheyenne Depot, which is was a major railroad station. Oh. Is somebody not muted?
Yeah, we mute all.
Did we get it?
I had to do that. Yeah, mute everybody.
Wanna hang on? Gotta. Sounds like a little kid. It's right there on the. There you go.
All are muted.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to start with the Styro building downtown. Yep. So the Styro building was built in. What is that?
That's not a kid. That's somebody on that.
Yeah, I know. Every time I talk, I hear it come over. That's weird. Anyways, that's Ed Ott, or was that noise? Anyways, it was built in 1923, and McPhee and Kennedy was a paint factory, and it's amazing that the paint factories usually burn down. Then it was taken over by the Styro, which I guess sold building materials, and they call it the Denver Lining Company. I think it was like construction materials. I think I bought ductwork there once. Does anyone buy anything from that building distributor?
We're not getting out on the feed properly.
Oh,
Can you stop share and restart share? See if that fixes it.
Can you see the slides advance on your end?
Yeah, your slides are not advancing.
Yeah, not on the web.
Use the 2.5.
oh, you're still on the.
title slide.
Okay, so what do I do? Hit stop share and then.
Yeah, that's probably that. Stop and restart.
Okay.
Now, share screen. And then share button.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, that looks.
Okay, hopefully it'll advance from here. So this building was abandoned, I guess, in the 1990s for like 20 years and fell into a pretty bad disrepair. And then it was bought by a redeveloper who turned it into, I think, 81 residential apartment units, which are pretty nice in size. So let me see if we go to the next one here.
There you go.
All right. So this is the reason why the paint factory never burned to the ground, since, paint is pretty flammable. This has really unique barn doors. And if you notice, they're at an angle, and they cut half of the track off that was over the doorways. But when there was a fire, these doors slammed shut. They weigh about 500 pounds each. They're real heavy steel. So this was kind of a pretty unique design for fire stop. I thought, I've never seen an angled or gravitational fed door like that before. But what I'm going to do is talk about 2 aspects of this. One is the tower clock itself, and then the original Seth Thomas tower clock movement, which was relocated into the lobby, and fortunately well preserved, I'm glad to say. This is the so to get up to this tower clock, you guys see, I really got a lot of stuff in the way of my titles and stuff at the top. So there's an apartment between me getting up to that tower clock, and the tenant hates people going into his apartment. And because I'm not the only trade, it's mechanical contractors. Last week I was there was the firemen were inspecting the building, the electricians. And so to get up to the access, it takes me a couple months in advance to schedule it. And it's a lot of hair pulling and teeth pulling. It's making it almost impossible to work on this clock, because this clock, and we'll talk about some of the problems that I incurred with it and repaired, and all the stuff that keeps on breaking. This is a video. This is the hatch at the top of this 2.5-story apartment. And so I took this video leaving the tower clock, so it's kind of backwards how I get into it. But let's see if I can, let's see if it'll play. Maybe not. There we are. It's probably all the streaming and stuff. It's going to be, it's having a hard time. Don't know if we're gonna be able to do this while we're online and stuff. I think this video is going to take up way too much. I'm going to stop this video and let's move on to the next slide. So this is up in the clock tower itself. And if you look in the back, this is the in the back corner is the new electrified system. And you can see two of the dial turrets, if you will, up on the walls. And this is where it gets really weird and interesting. And that is, there isn't a turret on this clock. It's actually the dial drive, its perimeter. It goes all the way around the walls, which I have never seen before. I've always seen tower clocks where it's in the center of the room and there's a turret and it goes out, right? This is, I believe this is original, because when they retroed this thing, 17, 18 years ago, I don't know why you would have gone to the trouble to build all these mechanical gear systems to go perimeter mounted. And so, and I'll show you some of the evidence that points both ways. I can't disseminate, why it was ever retrofitted this way, or but I can tell you that the mechanical movement, first thing I did was I looked for a turret on it, and they preserved everything on that movement, but there was no turret, and it looks like it could have immediately disconnected in the corner. But I've never seen a tower clock in the corner. Maybe they're doing something else with that room. Maybe it had other purposes. I don't know, but it doesn't seem to have it. It's like it's a pretty steep ladder to get up there, so I'm not quite sure. But again, I got to get around this video here because, oh, here you go. So this is a panorama. You can see that's a corner mount. There's a dial. There's the corner with the master clock below it on the wall. And then it goes over to that. And then it's linked to another corner unit over to another dial. And let me tell you, there's a lot of friction on this thing. A lot more than there is on a turret, because those corner units just adds a ton of friction. I mean, it's hard to push even when I've got the whole thing lubricated. But this is the retrofit that was done. And this is another little piece of weirdness here. So on the right, on the bottom right, you can see the actual master clock units. This is a master slave setup. The dial on the right is actually just a regular electric slave clock. The mechanism on the left is very electromechanical, and it's a little complicated, and it's breaking now on me. But it's got some switch gear. It's got a lot of cam switches and cams in it that you don't see. The dial on it is actually mechanically coupled. It's a high torque, low RPM motor on the left corner. And so it's a pretty, whoever built this, I think it was built by Seth Thomas to retrofit this clock. I'm not sure because that was not custom built, but that little box with all the wiring definitely was custom built. I don't know if that was done at the factory, but let's just say whoever built this knew a lot about mechanical, but didn't know a lot about safe wiring practices. Because when I worked on this thing, they got a lot of kapows because the wires were so short. They touched the chassis as soon as I moved it around. It was really hard to work on. I had to extend some wires inside there, but this is an interesting schematic that I found inside this clock here. Thank God. And you can see there's a lot of switches and relays in it, obviously. And if you look at the lower right hand, it says installed 5604 Greg Hill. Does anyone know who Greg Hill is? It's a 303 number. I called it, it was disconnected. But he did a good job. He spent a lot of time on this, obviously. I don't know, he's probably underneath the general contractor or something. I looked up the Greg Hills. I found an author and a musician and a doctor in town. So I don't know if the guy's still alive or what. But anyways, yeah, this is the only piece of documentation that was in there. It was pretty water damaged, so I immediately copied it. I gotta get a better scan of it, but it looks like a simple schematic, but it's really hard to work on and troubleshoot and diagnose because of the switches that are buried inside of that slave movement. And this is kind of an interest. So this is an interesting video here. So you'll notice when I put my hand on this thing, rocks back and forth. That is not a problem. That's a good thing. There's little cam switches at the bottom that you can see there. What that is if the dials freeze up or there's too much torque, that whole movement will actually just torque and shut itself off before it gets damaged. And thank God it has that, because one of the service calls was one of the line shafts between the dials fell off after how many years of working, just decided to jump off, and it shut down the whole system. Thank God it had that. Otherwise that motor would have probably driven this thing into more failures. So I'm going to show you some of the I already showed you this video. Hang on a sec here. Okay, so this is the corner, I guess we're going to call it a corner turret. That's right above the master clock, so you can kind of see a lot more moving parts than a normal turret would have. So it's got 3 corners, 2 coupled dials and 2 end of line dials. So this is part of why I go, is this new or is this old? Because look at the mounting bracket for the corner mounts. That is newer welds, newer paint. That's not old. I don't know if maybe they were wood and they rotted, and so they replaced them as part of this retrofit. Again, I really doubt somebody would go to the trouble to do all this mechanical perimeter mount interfacing as part of a retrofit. I mean, they would have just, any other tower clocks have been retrofit, they just put motors right behind the dials and drive them directly. They just put in like 4 slave motors and that's it, be done with it, right? So I have to think that this was some part of the original thing. And then on the bottom right there, that's where the inline drives. So the dial's right behind there, and you can see the shaft going in and the shaft going out. They're all the same design. They just don't hook a shaft on one side for the end of line. Oh, sorry. And that's an end of line right there. So you can see the U joint coming in. And again, here's another kind of question I have, which is, well, look at there's the works over the dial is one color green, and the U joint is a different color. So I don't know, maybe they replaced the U joints, but those U joints look pretty original with that square screw. That's pretty typical of any other tower clock I've ever worked on. So, and again, I don't see any other mounting that could have ever been done. So anyways, I'll show you another little curiosity here. There's another just corner unit. So unfortunately, got all this, I don't know if I can move all this bar at the top, but if you look right toward the top of the screen, you see that little brass with the hex on it up there. That's actually a Zerk fitting, and they had a Zerk fitting, 2 of them per dial, and so that like they actually go through pipes out the wall to the dials to lubricate the shafts on the front and back of the dial. Zerks weren't invented until this clock was put in, I think, around 1923, and Zerk wasn't even invented until I think I looked up 1929. So 6 years later. So I don't know if they somehow retrofitted those on to grease it. Maybe there was another kind of fitting at some point that I don't know. Maybe car guys know about this. That maybe there was a different kind of lubrication fitting at one time on there, and they replaced it with Zerk.
Probably an oil. I think they ran an oil drip.
And did they have quarter 20 threads back then? Because that's what this looked. Okay, so they might have unthreaded that and put in a Zerk to kind of make it newer, I guess.
Well, the grease will last longer than the oiler will.
Okay.
You've got to go up periodically refill the oiler.
Okay. All right. I like that. Thanks. That's something I was trying to figure out. There you go. There's a better picture of those 2 Zerks coming on the wall.
Yeah, if you look at the old hit and miss engines, they had the drip systems. So they had like a little glass bowl, and it would drip down into the bearings and stuff. So if you do a search on hit and miss engines, you can kind of see how they did it way back when for those gas engines.
So
or the
so
old steam engines.
somebody put these fittings on in place. So I got to get a Zerk grease gun up there and do that. That's about it for the tower. Now I want to talk about the Seth Thomas that's been preserved in the lobby. I heard that this club did a tour there once. Is that true? That you guys actually looked at this?
Not here. We went to the years ago.
Okay.
We saw one at the DNF tower on the floor.
Yeah.
First floor.
So one of the nice things they did in this building when they did this renovation, they did try to like preserve some of the historical artifacts. You can see down in the lower left corner, some of the pulleys I found that were just sitting up there, like probably from the old elevators and stuff like that. And you can see they did a really nice glass case in the corner of the original Seth Thomas movement. And it's got like display lighting, which isn't working right now. It was, I think, a Model 7. It's a beautiful grasshopper scheme, which most Seth tower clocks are. But and again, they preserved everything down to the little mini weights that go on the pendulum to tune it, and which surprises me, being that I mean, again, of all the parts that would get lost in relocating this thing, but the one thing that's not there is the automatic winding mechanism. It's gone. There's just a pulley with a small transmission to wind the clock, but all of the switch gear and it looks like the motor to me they had there wasn't the right motor, and the mount and all the switching that's necessary to start and stop winding. And that's kind of a big proposal that I'm trying to do to the people that own this property. They're a little reluctant to spend money, and it's going to take money to build in a lot of time, and but that's the only way those things are going to get running again. But it's very clean. It's like somebody did a great job going through it. It looks like it's ready to start. And so I was able to open the door at the was finally able to play locksmith one day and get this open so I could get some pictures inside. So it's a super, everything about this clock is heavy duty for even a tower clock. The thing I like about it is the rating lever on top. This thing's like this big. It's huge, heavy bronze thing. The pendulum bob, according to the catalog, weighs 300 pounds. It is a beast. I've never seen a pendulum that heavy before. You can see the little the weights are actually sitting on. I mean, how those didn't get lost and move down, you know, is beyond me, but they're there. But the thing that's really mind blowing on this is the suspension on this thing. So that suspension spring is 2.75 inches wide. It's a monster. It's a sheet of steel. And it's so wide. I mean, first of all, you can see on the left, they had to have those the ovals. So in case that thing ever snapped, that would catch that pendulum. Otherwise, you got, you know, 300-pound weight going nuts on you, right? That's a lot of energy to get released if that sucker ever broke. Well, what's really cool is if you look on that right-hand picture, because the spring is so wide, they had to do 2 balance screws on each side, not 1. And I've never seen that anywhere else, but that's just how big and bulky. And this is just chunks of brass in this thing. It's just monstrous. But I thought that was kind of cool because I've never seen a suspension spring that big on any clock I've ever seen or worked on anywhere. But that was a typical thing for Seth Thomas to do in their tower movements. Not unusual at all. Like most of the models have this. So that's enough on that one. Then I want to talk about, shift gears here and talk about the Cheyenne clock. So we got a call from the people, the city, the guys that maintain this, that of course it stopped after many years of working. And there was I guess a clockmaker in Cheyenne that I've heard his name here in this club before, but he's long gone, that was working on this for many years. You know, if you haven't been to the Cheyenne depot, if you're a train nut, this is definitely a must-have go-to place. First of all, it's been converted into a really nice railroad museum, you know, with a lot of cool artifacts and stuff you won't see in any other railroad museum. This place was built in 1886, Union Pacific. The clock was installed a few years later. It was kind of like an add-on almost. It was the largest railroad station west of Council Bluffs, Iowa. If you're a train person, the locomotive on the bottom left is a 484 big boy. Everybody's like, the big boy is the what do you call it, the engine everybody wants to see run. Like when it comes to Colorado, the news stations come out and everybody rushes to the track, right, when that thing runs. And they had more of the big boys of the 484s at stationed out of this depot than any other station around, because of the mountains and hills. They needed the power of these engines. And so that was kind of what made the Cheyenne depot so famous with the railroad buffs. And I put the website down there. If you go to CheyenneDepotMuseum.org, it's a really nice run museum. And, like I said, just a lot of material in that place, and just a great, place. And they do a lot of events there, from concerts to, they do all kinds of, this is kind of the town center of Cheyenne, if you will. Let's see. Okay. So the tower clock, I found an old Seth Thomas catalog, and it's what I call a double decker. So the movement sits on one floor and the dial is on another floor. So that's kind of the architecture of this design, which was pretty common for Seth. So like I said, this clock is in their catalog. So this is the floor below the movement. So this is the weight room, if you will. So you can see the trap door, and you can see the weight coming down. And I think that's enough for it to run about 1 week. Interestingly enough, if you look those lines going up, if you look on the left, there's like a regular electrical conduit, another electrical conduit, and then if you notice, there's two smaller lines which are copper. Those are gas lines, and we'll talk about those because that's another interesting story. Why there's gas line going up to the tower clock. So anyways, now I'm going to take you up to the main movement floor. So this is Glenn. He's the city architect, and he maintains this clock, or just say winds it every week, because this is not a self-winding. It is a mechanical wind movement at the moment. They've talked about wanting to convert it to auto wind, which, you know, I don't think they're there yet. But what they did was, because people, they do tours of this tower once in a while, or there's maintenance people going up there, and the tower clock, I guess, was getting vandalized or getting damaged, and I noticed evidence of that as well, that I had to repair. So they have this little doghouse or whatever that they put around the tower clock, you know, so it's got a lock as well, but you can, you know, see it through the window. And, you know, like I said, Glenn goes up there once a week and winds this, and, you know, adjusts the time when he needs to. So he's currently the when I could say the curator of it. And on the right there, you can see the stairs that goes up to the dial level. So here's a close up of the movement. Again, the pendulum's always in the front with set tower clocks. You can see the winding shaft on the right. This is the left-hand side, and if you notice the bottom shaft, there's that little, I wish I had a laser pointer, but the way you set the time on this, it actually uses a regular winding key. You put it around, there's a little square drive there, and you actually can change the time just by turning that, which is really nice. A way to set the clock without stopping it or you know, interfering. That's something that Seth did pretty well. On the other side, there's the cable side of it. You know, pretty, you know, again, you can see the hand crank is actually sitting on the movement on the bottom of the screen. So this is the dial level. And the reason why this clock stopped, well, there's two reasons. There was a lot of damage to the movement, as well as they never knew that they were supposed to lubricate the turret or the dials or the U-joints or anything. And so none of it got oiled for 20 plus years. And it basically, you know, all that stuff dried up, and, you know, it's finally stopped the clock. There's just so much friction. I mean, when I tried to rotate the turret, I mean, it was seized up all the way. And so we spent a lot of time kind of, you know, just oiling the crap out of everything, trying to get it, you know, going again, because my goal was to just get it going and then come back with a, you know, a plan or proposal to restore the whole thing. And, you know, I mean, yeah, this thing really needs to be gone through and cleaned. You know, it'll take, you know, about 2 or 3 days to you know, really go through it. Plus there's some remachining that needs to be done. But you'll notice on that dial right down at the bottom there are all those colored LED bulbs. So for different holidays, they put in, you know, red and green, or, you know, orange for Halloween. Right now you see where there's 3 white bulbs and 1 orange. What they're doing is they're making the color temperature lower. So they're making it more warm white by adding that orange bulb, which is ridiculous. I actually did a proposal for them to convert that whole thing with LED, that they could just log into, you know, their computer and put whatever color on the dials they wanted. They've also put a video projector up here on these glass dials, and like projected ghosts flying around them for Halloween before. So they're very creative with this, right? But, you know, again, that you got people going up there and messing around that shouldn't be. But if you look right above that dial on the right, you'll see what was the last lighting system, which was the old fashioned gas station lights. And when we were talking earlier about the gas lines, it used to be gaslit originally. That's why and so those gas lines are still up there. The gas fixtures aren't there anymore. I didn't see any sign of those. But I thought that was pretty cool that they, you know, originally that's how this thing was lit before they had electricity. So that was interesting to me. So this is a close-up of, you know, the glass dials, which are beautiful. I'd say of all the tower clocks that have been in, this is the nicest one from the standpoint of that, you know, milk glass, which is like like 5/8 of an inch thick. They've got a couple pieces of it, loose or cracked, but for the most part, because it's so thick and, and the wind's up there, when it gets windy up there, it really messes it with it. So I'm surprised they haven't had to replace more. But I just love the look of these dials a lot. So that makes it kind of fun. So here's the turret itself. They use an oak shaft to go up the floor from the movement up to this turret. And again, everything was seized up. It was all just dried out from, again, they didn't know they had to oil these. So I'm like, yeah, you do. So we basically oiled the crap and then rotated it a lot and got things loosened up again. But it's a ticking time bomb. But the other problem, which was more severe, was, and I don't know how this thing ran for years like it did, but I was playing around to see how much shake there was in the bushings, to see how much wear there were on the pivots, right? And I noticed that the bushing on the scape wheel in the back was like, it was, these are 3/16 of an inch diameter pivots. They're big. And the bushing was like ovaled out like a 1/4 inch. I mean, it was really bad. And so I'm like, okay, I got to look at this and see what's going on. So I took it out, and the pivot on the scape wheel was bent 5 degrees. And it looked like somebody maybe hit it with a hammer or something like that. I've never seen a pivot that bent. And so I'm like, well, I can't put this thing back in, like this. This is nuts. And it needs to be obviously cut off and, put on a lathe, remachine, a new pivot put in. But I managed to take it out and spend a couple hours and use a caliper and like rolled it across a couple of parallels and, with the caliper. And I just literally just tapped it with a hammer and got it back within about 1/1000th of an inch, which surprised me. And then I kind of burnished a little bit, I'm like, okay, at least so I can do further damage. And then these bushings are rotatable because they have like 3 screws on them. And I put it out of phase from the wear so that the deflection that was causing the wear is the point the opposite way. And lo and behold, fixed it temporarily. I mean, that's obviously not good practice. I look, I need a machine and put some new bushings for you, but that's going to take some time, and I need to bring a lathe up here because I don't want to bring them back with me, because that means your clock is down even more time and parts get lost. So anyways, that what I did was and then there was some damaged teeth on the third wheel too, and again, that looked like more, I don't know, somebody hit this thing or something. I kind of had to work on the teeth a little bit, had to do a little bit of bending, a little bit of filing, and clean it up to where it's pretty good. It doesn't need, teeth don't need to be replaced or anything. And so what I did was I spent a lot of hours. I made this proposal. I said, look, here's the scope of work. This is everything we need to do. And, I'm going to have travel time, food, I got mileage, and I got hours. I'm going to need to bring a second person with me to do this. So it's, I'm going to need to bring a bench top lathe with me, a lot of tooling, a lot of planning, probably do this in 2 or 3 trips. And I came with a proposal and stuff, and they liked it. Well, I said here, city politics, quote unquote. Well, what that means is I couldn't get paid by that. When I did this repair, I spent, with driving and repairing it, it was about a 14-hour day. And I was pretty reasonable. I charged them less than what you guys would charge to go service a grandfather clock in a home locally, right? So I was real reasonable with them. I couldn't get paid for 4 months. And it was just a city. And I'm like, look, you told me it wasn't gonna be a problem getting paid. And, I felt like I was playing collections agent, and finally got paid. And I basically, and then they tell me, oh, you want to do the rest of this work? You're going to need a contractor's license in the state of Utah and insurance. And I'm like, gee, thanks for telling me that. My prices went up. Oh, and by the way, because you couldn't pay me, I need 50% down, because I'm not going to get strung out for thousands of dollars and all my time. Again, I'm just not doing it. And then they're like, well, we're gonna have to go out to bid with this. And I'm like, good luck with that. Goodbye. You know, and I'm like, call me when the clock breaks again and we'll have a real conversation. Cause I'm like, this is, a city. And I asked them before I ever went up there, I said, do you require a tractor's license? No. Do you require, comprehensive insurance? No, you're fine. You're just a service. I'm like, great. And they actually tried to use that as an excuse not to pay me. So,
Wyoming,
yeah, it's Cheyenne, city of Cheyenne.
same thing in Colorado.
Yeah,
We went through that with
the
Greeley.
Greeley courthouse. I remember that. Yeah, you had a lot of that, like almost stopped you dead in your tracks.
They don't have some sort of historical preservation separate state fund.
Yeah, I was supposed to be part of that. This was the, people that worked inside the museum, but it's governed by the city. And again, just, red tape. And so it just made it impossible. Again, this clock, like I said, it's on borrowed time, no pun intended. Right. It's, I made it run again, but I told them, look, it's not going to run like this forever. It's filthy, dirty. It's, we need to clean it. We need to, go in and remachine these parts. These bushings are going to keep wearing bad. You don't, you run this at your own risk, but I got it running and that's what they wanted. So, that's been kind of an issue with them. So anyways, enough about that. So this was in I found this interesting. So this was in the Seth Thomas catalog, and these were their list of references of their tower clocks in Colorado. And of course, we all know the DNF tower, right? But has anyone heard of these other entities? And it looks like a lot of them are down south. And interesting enough, the Styro built, or the Kennedy Styro, is not on the references, and that clock was in when this catalog came out. So for some reason, they didn't use them as a reference.
Yeah, well, John knows about the one in the Springs, Ashby.
Okay.
Ashby was a giant jeweler, and they had a clock on the street, post clock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is that what that is?
John knows about that one. Yeah,
So that's a post clock. That's not a tower clock.
right.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. I don't know if any of these other buildings exist anymore. I think a lot of them have been demolished or by now. I'm not sure. But I think the Pueblo Union Depot is still there, is it not? I don't know. We don't have anyone here that lives south.
I've seen that a couple years ago. Yes,
Yep.
they put a lot of money into that whole area from historical preservation
Right.
funds. And there's
Just Google it.
Okay. Was that you volunteering? So anyways, so this is the 2.5. How am I doing on time? Okay. So this is that courthouse building, Laramie Courthouse, with the one dial. You can see it up there on the roof. And what I really like about this is the Seth Thomas Remontois movement, which is pretty darn cool. That's right. And this is maybe 10 feet below that dial. And it's in their IT room, which is glassed in. This is really nice. I mean, it's like next to all their server racks and stuff like that. So kind of fun. Lots of cables hanging off it, which I'll explain in a second. But this is kind of a close up of the movement. So it's Remontois. So on the left-hand side, there's a huge fly governor. It's actually adjustable, so you can actually move the fins and change the speed of the governor if you want. So that's, that comes into play when it needs to wind the Remontois or the secondary weights. There it is. So you can see kind of a close up of the fins. You don't want to be in the way of that when that thing starts spinning. It'll cut you up. But actually, I want to go back to the slide here. So on the right-hand side there is actually a really bizarre switch mechanism. If you notice, I think that's what controlled the lights in the building. So that's like a secondary that that's tied, to two little screw pins there that probably is a start and stop time. And if you notice, there's a big old fashioned toggle switch in the lower right-hand corner. So that little mechanical gear was actually opening and closing that toggle switch to turn on and off the lights. So it's amazing no one ever got electrocuted by that. Maybe they did. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't
Check
see
the
any,
obits.
I didn't see any burnt print marks on it like I normally do. But anyways, yeah, it's kind of I'll go back one here. So
Sorry, on that thing, did you notice any mechanism to adjust the timing for summer and winter?
no,
Like on old Japanese clocks, they.
no, it wasn't that sophisticated. I mean, come on, man, we're controlling a toggle switch here with the
Yeah,
with the
no,
kid.
if you had little notches or something.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's kind of a cool movement. I mean, it's got uses the Huygens mechanism, which is, that's why there's so many. Whoever designed this really had a chain fetish. On this, and so, but it's kind of a compact movement for the fact that it's Remontois. But anyways, this is it in the the Seth Thomas catalog originally. How the floor model ever, and then this is the dial. So you just go up that ladder, and here's another nice beautiful glass dial in it. So that's nice. So that's it. The end.
Weight-driven clock. It would be on a spring-driven clock.
Yeah.
Force changes, but on a weight-driven clock, almost by definition, it's constant.
Yeah.
Why would you therefore have a Remington?
Well, because I mean, look at, you don't have any, I mean, this is only, the weight only has that much to drop.
Right?
And so, I'm sure that even that weight had to go 3 or 4 times a day. And I think that Remontois was probably going maybe every 30 minutes would be my guess. It's not running right now. It was kind of dirty. And I proposed that we clean that. They were very paranoid about me touching this movement though. They're like, don't touch it. I'm like, look, I know what I'm doing. I mean, this isn't rocket science. I can get it going for you. I can set the time for you. And they're like, don't touch, they were just like, they were just awful paranoid that day, the IT guys. So anyways,
They don't understand it, therefore you don't.
that's right. Yeah. Well, that's it, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Have you seen other Remington clocks anywhere?
That's the only,
Because weight-driven normally.
yeah, it's their, I mean, Seth had it in the catalog as a standard item, but I think most installations, they kind of avoided it because it's pretty complicated and very high maintenance. A lot to go
It
wrong with
does
that thing.
Reduce the amount of strain on the timekeeping. portion.
Right, you don't need that much power for one
Yeah.
dial, right?
Very little.
That's probably
So that-
why.
That helps with that aspect. of it.
Right. So, all right.
David?
All right,
that
thank you.
switch- Could that switch be used for the backlighting for the dial?
What's that?
Could that switch be used for the backlighting of the dial? So it'd be like a modern day timer?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I was thinking that, if I restored it, that's exactly what I would do with it. Just to make it operable, obviously turn it low voltage. And then just go through a relay or something like that to switch the lights on and off. That's, right now the wires are just dangling off it. So I don't know what they're hooked to originally.
Yeah, because a picture of the dial looked like there was lights behind the dial. Up on
Yeah,
the,
there's 2 floodlights. Yeah, one's dead.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't know if that was being controlled by that blade switch.
It may have been originally. I mean, if you notice, it's all new conduit up there. And if you notice on the original one there, you can see the 2 wires hanging off of that switch just dangling, and you can actually see the raw conductors right next to the ladder. You see that?
Mhm.
So they're not hooked up to anything
It just-
currently. You notice they have a lot of other wires hooked over to the left, which one is master power to the motor, and those other wires are, there's actually the electronics relay box is actually mounted over on the wall. That's why there's so many wires running to and from the clock. So those are the limit switches for the start and stop of the winding. So
I didn't know if
that's
all the
kinda
little
messy.
holes in that gear are like little pegs to trip the switch.
Exactly. So you can unscrew them and move them around to set different times. So daylight, I don't know if they had daylight savings back then, but,
In winter, you need different timings. from the
right, so
summer.
they probably just moved those pins. Yeah. Yeah, that's probably what they did.
The Japanese had an even more complicated system, and they had all sorts of simple ways of adjusting to different hours. Because they divided the day into hours, so
Mhm.
some other days, the hours would be longer.
Right,
And they did this on their clocks. And you can go and read it. The guy Drummond Robertson wrote a whole lot of this.
yeah. They were really the ones that invented or really mastered the art of, we call it the astronomical time, or the beginnings of it.
You know, they also had a weird system where you count down. And you had to leave out 1, 2, and 3 because those were holy numbers.
Right,
So it went from 4 to 9, from 9 to 4 downwards.
right.
Complicated.
Yeah. No, that's why we nuked them.
I used to
Too
have
soon?
a,
Too soon?
I used to have a torque time switch that was from New York City street lighting. And they had automatic adjustment for seasons of the year on their time switches. And in their case, of course, city that big, you can imagine, save an hour of power,
Yeah,
you save a lot of money.
yep. All righty. All right, guys.
We're good. Well, it looks like, is it William has his hand up? Somebody has a hand up here. Somebody wants to ask a question?
Williams iPad.
No.
We're
William,
talking.
are you there?
That's me.
He's unmuted, so all he has to do is speak up.
Yeah. It may have been accidental.
Right. There, it went away.
Now he's embarrassed. He's been shamed by the club.
All right.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned. Ken, do you want to adjourn the meeting?
Will do. We're gonna shut down the recording first.
Okay,